Some say it's all about 1925 and beyond. The podcast. KC 100 year celebration with Pete A. Kennedy and Marlon A. Kennedy.
Welcome, it's the 1925 and Beyond podcast. I'm your co-host, Pete A. Kennedy, and I'm here with big brother, Marlon A. Kennedy. And today's session is pretty exciting. One, because we're sitting beside each other right here in Kingston, Jamaica, as we continue to work, as we focus on interviewing individuals who have gone through the journeys or I would say the life of Kingston College, whether you're a KC old boy, faculty, support, or parent. This podcast is for you. But I don't want to spill the beans. I'm going to turn it over to Big Brother as he talks about our guests. But before we do that, we have to drop some credit. I went to Kingston College between the years of 1992 to 1995. I played football 93, 94, 194. And in 1995, I played Manning Cup, and then the rest was history. But let me turn it over to Big Brother, Marlon A. Kennedy.
Hi, thank you, Pete. Welcome everyone to another episode of 1925 and Beyond. I was hoping that with today's guest that Pete would not mention his accolades, because compared to what Pete did at KC and what our guest has done at KC and internationally,
right.
We are mere speck on the earth in terms of success. But I went to KC as well, 1986 to 1993. Similar to our guest, I played cricket. I wasn't on the end of driving fear into batsmen, but I approached the game as a batsman.
That's right.
So I was on the end that persons like himself delivered in terms of their pace and accuracy. So and I kept at all three levels for Kingston College as well. Nice. So our guest today,
yes.
We're very happy to have our guest. In fact, I could easily say this is probably the greatest accolade that anybody could bestow on you. Outside of Bishop Gibson, I could easily say that our guest is probably the most famous person to have passed through KC internationally, yes. Locally. Everybody knows the name. Whether or not you're a follower or a fan of the sport that he played, we all are aware of who our guest is and what he has done. So our guest today is none other than Michael Holden.
Yes, sir.
Michael, welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate it. Boy, Mike, I must say that, we were very happy when we spoke to Dr. Wayne Fraser, and he said that he could get Michael for us as well. So we appreciate that there's still that connection, and for one old boy to link us up with another. So I really appreciate your time, Michael. I know how things are where you are now, and we really appreciate it. So in true fashion, Michael, with all our guests, we ask us to tell us your story, to start from the journey. We'd like to know, what was Michael Holden life about prior to Kingston College?
Well, like most youngsters growing up in JA, as a youth, before I got to double figures, I went to primary school and prep school, that sort of thing. I moved around a bit in that region. I went to Dunrobin Prep because I lived on Dunrobin Avenue.
Nice.
And then I went to Peterkins Prep, which used to be in Halfway Tree, then Crossroads Valley. I'm not too sure Peterkins Prep still exists. Yeah. Okay. But it used to be on Brentford Road, near to the Kerry Theatre.
Yes.
And I moved from Peterkins Prep into KC at age 10.
10. So, yeah. All right. So just to confirm, did you have any siblings growing up?
Yeah. I had 2 sisters and a brother. I'm the youngest in my family. My parents had 4 kids, 2 girls and 2 boys.
Did your older brother attended KC as well?
Marlon, everybody in my family attended KC. Even the girls. My mother taught at KC. My eldest sister taught at KC. My father attended KC. My brother attended KC. I attended KC. The younger of my 2 sisters, who was a qualified doctor, she's now retired. She has done stuff at KC with anybody that has needed her at any time. My family is KC.
That's good to hear that, Michael, because some of the times, it seems to be a trend that a lot of the old boys that we interview, there's some sort of lineage there in terms of family, even with even with the ladies in the family. So it's really good to hear that.
Yeah, and the younger of the two sisters dated a KC man, and for many, many years. Muller Walker was his name.
Wow.
Okay.
Unfortunately, you know, he died, but Muller Walker is a big KC stalwart. You know, Muller Walker, his father was mayor of Kingston for quite a few years. So he going back many, many years, long before you guys were born.
Wow. Wow. Well, that means your entire family is just inundated with Kingston College, down to the females, down to the men, down to the
It's just pure Fortis.
Everybody.
It's just pure Fortis. My father built the pavilion down there at North Street.
We heard about
We heard about that,
Yeah.
and it's good to see that the contribution is especially of parents back then, because we were told, you know, that he built the pavilion, and to see that structure still there.
Yes.
And how many persons have so many fond memories of that structure.
Yes.
You know, because as you know, that's where over North Street, where you have the weight room and the people stretch and do all that sort of thing. And you know, the sixth arm state back then, that was where the sixth arm block was, where you had the sixth arms. We were watching football. Get to see everything that's happening there. So that's brilliant. Because it was said that your father was an architect.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Architect, builder, contractor. He did all that himself. And he did not go to a university. He was self-taught.
Whoa, that's good. Was he a part of any other prominent structure in Kingston?
He built a lot of homes. He built quite a few homes upon Beverly Hills and built different structures. He started the George Headleys stand at Sabina Park. But he did not complete that project because of an incident on the ground.
Okay.
A very unfortunate incident where he was approached by someone with a firearm, and he decided that he had better move on.
Okay.
Got it. Yep.
Yeah. That makes sense. Understood.
Yep.
All right. So tell us about your KC journey now, Michael.
Well, as I said, I went to KC at age 10. As a matter of fact, Mrs. Peterkin at Peterkin's Prep didn't want me to leave Peterkin's Prep to go to KC because age 10 is pretty young. And she wanted me to stay there and to take the scholarship again the following year. I'd passed the first year, but she thought that if I had stayed there and done it again, the year after, I would have gotten like a government scholarship or something like that. I don't know where she got that idea from. But I moved into KC at age 10. When my first year at KC was when the school year actually changed. So instead of spending just a year in first form, we spent like a year and a half in first one because the school year changed. I don't remember if it changed from January. I think it was used to calendar year.
Yes, you're right. We heard of that. Yes.
Yeah, and it changed to September and that sort of thing. So when we thought we were going to second form, because we were at Melbourne Park. This is the first time now KC is going to have any classrooms at Melbourne Park.
What was that?
Now we're moving from Melbourne Park to the big KC, the real KC, because you know, little boy was dying to go over to North Street. We understood and heard that we had to spend a few more months at Melbourne Park, and then eventually we went to North Street.
What year you started at KC, Michael?
64.
Okay.
But I've pretty much been adopted by the 65 year because because of the fact that, you know, spend more time in first form than normal.
Yeah.
So all the guys who came in 65, you know, they sort of adopted me in their old boys association.
Well, it makes sense, you know, Michael, with your accolades, you know, we'll take you on to, you know.
Of course.
So feel free to join my 91-year graduates. Would have a problem. We have space so you can take
my
your
95.
No, the gray here would send the wrong signal.
I appreciate it. So what was it like for your time at KC?
My time at KC, I've said it on so many occasions, and even on a form that I was given when I did my last book to talk about my most enjoyable times and the best time of my life. Being at KC was the best time of my life. You know, when people say, oh, you're married and have children, no, it's got to be no, being at KC was the best time of my life. And for one simple reason, apart from the fact that it was a great institution, I made many friends. One simple reason, at KC, I did not know anything about the world. I was ignorant to the world, and I was just a young man enjoying life, having friends, going to school, going home in the evenings, having great parentage, and of course, family. And I was ignorant to the world that which we lived in. Now, as a big man and having grown up and read so much, I know how difficult this world is. Not that I'm complaining about it, but it is a fact. It's a difficult world. And as I said, as a young man, I was ignorant to it. So you just growing up and enjoying life and taking things for granted. As time moves on, you have got to learn and you have got to be able to adapt and you have got to be able to adjust to what is happening around you. But that doesn't mean that you must forget what happened at school. And as I said, that was my best period of time. I spent 9 years at KC. If I could have spent 10 or 11, I would have. But when you get to 19, they say you have to leave.
Yeah.
You have to leave.
So, but you coming out of those points that you just made, Michael, you know, that, you know, even though times were hard, you never felt it. One of the
But you're
important...
protected, you know, Marlon.
Good.
You're a young man. You're protected by your school environment. You're protected by your family. So you're unaware of all the things happening around you.
Yeah. Good, Michael. And that leads to the point that one of the stories coming out of the other old boys that we have spoken to about you is that you had very good support from your parents. They said that your parents were at every game and all of that. So just tell us about that aspect of family life.
Well, as you have heard, my parents were always around me. At the same time, even though I was doing well in sports, they didn't come around me because I was doing well at sports. My parents were involved in sports from before I was even born. My father was a cricketer and a footballer. He was a member of the YMCA. He was a member of Railway. I don't think they have it. Well, I know for a fact they don't have any Railway club anymore.
No more Railway football club, yeah.
Exactly. But he was a member of those two organizations, playing cricket and football for both of them. My mother did a lot of sports. Many years after, even after she had actually died, I got a story from a cousin of mine that when they were living on Luke Lane near the race course, her siblings and her older family used to take her to race course and bet men that this little girl could run faster than them. I bet you a penny this little girl can beat you. And of course, they look at this little girl and say, beat me, come on, seize my penny or whatever. And she used to run away and leave them. So she was an athlete. My father was an athlete, football, cricketer. So it was just in my genes that sports was going to be my life. Never thought I'd become a professional sportsman, but of course, sports were going to be part of my life growing up. So it was always there, and they supported me. As I said, not because they thought I was going to get very far, but because they were sporting people as well, and sports was in their life. I remember again, I shouldn't say I remember, because when it was happening, I was unaware. Many years later on, I realized what was actually taking place. I was 6 years old. This is why, looking back, I can recognize that this is the time it was. My parents were listening to Test cricket from Australia when they had that tie test in 1960 and that fantastic series that Worrell and Benno played down in Australia. They were listening to the Test series. Late at night, they had the radio, transistor radio in the bedhead. And I, pretending that I wanted to listen to cricket as well, used to snuggle up between them. I had no idea what was going on. But you want to snuggle up between your parents. You know, 6 years old, you want to... So looking back, I recognized that was what was taking place. But at the time, I had no idea what I was listening to. And of course, by the first 15, 20 minutes, I was asleep. So my parents were into sports a long, long time. My sisters went to St. Andrews. They competed in sports. My brother, the entire family, Fortis and sports. Sports were our life.
Well, that's good to hear. So because you're into sport, what did you play cricket at primary and prep school, or you only started that when you went to KC?
No. I started playing cricket from a kid. From before I went to KC. When I was at Peterkin Prep, I remember going down to race course again, not far from Peterkin's Prep. We used to walk to race course, play cricket on some concrete pitches. And one of the bigger boys at Peterkin's Prep, now you're talking about me being 8 years old. So a bigger boy could probably be 10, but I'm 8 and he's 10. So I think of him as a big boy to me. And he picked me in the Peterkin's Prep team. We walked up the race course to play this match against some, again, looking back, they couldn't be more than 12, 13 years old, these guys. But because I'm only 8, I am thinking, man, these are big boys. They are
Big man.
and I played in that game. So when I was playing cricket from a kid, my first game in actually whites with an umpire was again before I started playing cricket at KC. I played for a club. I shouldn't even call it a club. It's a community. We had a community team in the Dunrobin Red Hills Road area. I would play at Red Hills Oval. There's a school there now just across the gully because that bordered on my backyard. So just walk through the fence down to the oval. And that was where I played my first recognized cricket match in whites with an umpire. It was a ranking cup match. It was my community against, I don't even remember the name, but it was a business house. And that's where I played my first game. And of course, I was playing friendly games with Melbourne because I was a member of Melbourne from birth. I was born at home. I was born in the master bedroom. And my father was standing by the door with the midwife inside. No doctor, no nurse, a midwife inside with my mother. And as soon as the baby arrived, my father kind of pushed his head in and the midwife said, it's a boy. And he went down to Melbourne and registered me immediately. So I was a member of Melbourne from birth. So I was playing cricket at Melbourne. I was playing cricket at Red Hills Oval with my community.
So hold on, Michael. Hold on. So hold on. So technically, you're saying that your father registered you at Melbourne before you were registered with the government.
Of course.
Yeah.
They knew my name. I didn't have a birth certificate, but they knew my name. They were the ones that were going to name me. So he registered me at Melbourne from birth.
Wow. That's good. So with the start of your cricket career, did you start as a pace bowler or were you?
No. I was too little and too weak to be talking about being a fast bowler. I used to bowl some little off breaks and try and bat. Eventually, I started to try and bowl a little bit faster or medium pace, I suppose you would call it. And in fact, I played minor cup from Melbourne before I played for KC.
Okay.
Trevor Parchment, who was a sports master at KC, who heard I was playing cricket for Melbourne and said to me, why don't you come and try playing for KC? Because I was, as I said, Melbourne from birth. So that's where all of my cricket was. And although I played like junior Coles and Coles, nobody really recognized that until they started playing Sunlight. That's when people started to recognize people play, because we had a guy at KC, George Headleys, son, yes, Sidney Headley. He was a fantastic cricketer. If he had stayed in Jamaica and gone through the ranks, he would have played for the West Indies. I know Dean Headley's father, Ron Headley. Ron Headley did not have the talent that Sidney Headley had. Sidney Headley was a Pan-Africanist and he decided he was going back to Africa. That's why he didn't stay in Jamaica. So Sidney, Boops as they call him, went back to Africa, was living in Africa. That's why he did not play cricket for the West Indies.
Okay. So what describe your describe your cricket career in KC now. What was that like?
Well, again, you play junior Coles, you play Coles, then you get into the Sunlight team. And when I got into the Sunlight team, it was almost as if I was forced into the team. Mr. Parchment insisted that I should try and make the team. And I was selected. But I'm not afraid to say that the captain at the time didn't really welcome me being in the team. I was supposed to be a fast bowler. I'm supposed to have this hard ball. I think I was the 5th bowler used. The opening bowlers, and I have no reason to doubt his decision because he knew these guys. These guys were older than me. These guys were the frontline bowlers before I arrived. They bowled, the spin bowlers bowled, and it's all about, so not at some point they said, you know what, let me try this youngster with the ball. And the first over I bowled, I got a wicket. And that is how they recognize, okay, this guy looks like he knows what he's doing. And, the progression started.
Excellent. Wow.
So if you remember, how many wickets it was that first time?
No,
3,
I
4?
don't remember that piece. I don't remember that at all. I wouldn't be able to tell you how many wickets I took in sunlight at any stage, to be honest.
Nice.
I know we won some nice matches and we destroyed some teams, but I didn't really focus on what I was doing in particular, how many wickets I took.
Excellent. So at what point was it whilst you were at KC that you started to take the game seriously? Or I don't want to say you were not taking it seriously, but at what point in time you saw that this was a career for you?
At no point in time at KC did I think it was a career. Absolutely no point. I was playing, I enjoyed playing the sport, I enjoyed playing for KC, I enjoyed the winning that we were doing. I got into the Jamaica squad, not into the final 11 when I was still at KC. And of course, it was a great thing. I felt good, yes, I've been selected by Jamaica. They think highly of what I'm capable of doing. But I never ever thought of being a professional cricketer. My mother was a teacher. As I told you, she taught at KC. But even before that, she was a headmistress at St. George's Girls' School. She taught at Alpha. So my mother believed in qualifications. And she always said to me, Mikey, make sure you get a piece of paper behind your name. Because although I was playing cricket, I was playing football, I fiddled around with table tennis and basketball, all those because I just love sports. I did a little bit of athletics, whatever was going, I did it. And she recognized that I love sports and was getting involved in all these sports. And she kept on insisting, make sure you get a piece of paper behind your name. So at no point was I thinking, I'm going to be a professional sportsman, whether it's cricket or anything else. And even when I started playing for the West Indies, there wasn't any money in the game those days. My first tour to Australia with the West Indies team, 1975-76, I got $500 for the entire tour. So there's no way I was thinking I'm going to make a living from this. If you're going to make a living from it, you have to go and play like county cricket and get overseas contracts and that sort of thing. And I never wanted to play county cricket. I was offered a contract. My first tour to England, 76, I did well on that tour. I got 28 wickets in the 4 test matches that I played. And I was offered a contract to go to Sussex. And Sussex was offering me £10,000, a house, not a house for me to own, but a house to live in, a car to drive. So 1976, that's good money. £10,000. You living expense, not expense because you still have to buy your food and whatever, but you rent paid, you have a car that all you have to do is put petrol in it. That was fantastic, but I turned it down because I was just not interested in becoming a professional cricketer. Plus, my mother was in the back of my head. Remember that piece of paper. Fortunately as well, when I got back from that 76 tour, Michael Manley, who was the Prime Minister at the time, offered me a scholarship to go to the University of the West Indies to do computer science. And I took up that offer. Of course, my mother in particular, my parents would have been extremely happy. So that is the direction in which I was heading. Things changed because of Kerry Packer when Kerry Packer came along. But that's the direction in which I was heading. But at the same time, I'm very happy Packer came along.
All right, so for those who don't know or are not aware of the history, just explain what Kerry Packer was and how that impacted persons like yourself getting into the West Indies team.
Well, as I just stated about the money that was in the game those days, getting $500 to go on a tour for the West Indies down to Australia, as I said, that's nothing. When Kerry Packer came along, Kerry Packer was a gentleman that owned a television company, Channel 9 in Australia. And he, for many years, had been bidding to broadcast cricket in Australia, offering up money, offered even more than the national television station, which was ABC, Australia Broadcasting Corporation, and they kept on turning him down. Being a businessman, he thought, this is something that I can benefit from, broadcasting cricket in this country. I need to do something about this. I'm offering them more money than the ABC is offering them. Let me see how I can get around this. So that is when he went out and contracted 50 of the world's best cricketers and started his own cricket series called World Series Cricket. People just refer to it as Kerry Packer Cricket, but it was called World Series Cricket, and he went out and recruited cricketers for this. Now, I was recruited amongst those first 50. When I was recruited, I was not even playing for the West Indies because, as I told you earlier on, Mr. Manley had given me a scholarship to go to University of the West Indies. I went to University of the West Indies in September 76, I think it was, after coming back from England that summer. And Pakistan were in the Caribbean in probably February, March 1977. So this is about 5 months of me getting into the University of the West Indies. And the test match was being played in Trinidad. I got a call from Clive Lloyd, who was the captain, of course, at West Indies at that time, telling me about Kerry Packer cricket, telling me that he and some other West Indian cricketers had been approached. If you hear a plane buzzing over, gentlemen, it's one of the flights going into the airport. I hope it's not too loud.
No,
But
man.
anyway, Kerry Packer was trying to buy all these cricketers from around the world to play in his cricket. And Lloyd had told me that somebody was going to come and see me in Jamaica to discuss the entire proposal. Pakistan, as I said, was playing West Indies in Trinidad. He called me in Jamaica. 2 gentlemen turned up, Austin Robertson and Tony Gregg, to explain to me exactly what was happening. The money that they offered, gents, there was no way I was going to turn it down. Because after going to Australia 2 years before, 75, 76, for $500, now in 77, 78, which is going to be the first year of World Series cricket, they're offering me 25,000 Australian dollars for the same length of time. And also a 3-year contract, guaranteed. Even if the hell broke loose after the first year, the 3 years were guaranteed. You're going to get paid for 3 years. So how can I turn that down? I was not in the West Indies team. I wasn't even thinking too far down the line, apart from the fact that this man is paying me all this money. And to be honest, when they told me about it, I didn't believe it. I said, you know what? Lloyd says he's going, Andy is going. Viv says that he knows going to think about it, and more than likely he's going to go. I was the 4th person that they approached. I said, well, I'll sign. I'm not going to lose anything. I'm at university. So even if it doesn't happen, I'll just continue my university and try and get my university degree.
Agree.
It just so happens that later on, it did come to fruition. But at the time, I had nothing to lose. I'll say, okay, whatever happens, happens. So I signed the contract, but under one condition, because when Tony Gregg and Austin Robertson were explaining to me what was taking place, and told me, of course, I had to be quiet. I couldn't tell anyone because this was being done undercover. Nobody was supposed to know about it. They said to me that they had already signed some South African cricketers. And I said to them, because remember, gents, again, Michael Manley was the Prime Minister of Jamaica. He was one of the first signatories on the Glen Eagles Agreement. And of course, those who are unaware of the Glen Eagles Agreement, it's an agreement that a lot of the Commonwealth and world countries signed to ban South Africa, no sporting contact with South Africa. So if you have your Prime Minister, one of the first signatories on that agreement, you can't just go behind his back and go and play with South Africa. So I said to them, I'll come under one condition, that Mr. Manley says it's okay for me to come. It just so happens that when they went back to Australia, they told Mr. Packer what I had said, and Mr. Packer called Mr. Manley. No, this is something I'm finding out many years after. I'm not aware of this at the time. And they came to an agreement, Mr. Packer and Mr. Manley, that the only South Africans that would play in World Series cricket were those that were already playing cricket in England in county cricket. The South Africans who were not involved in county cricket would not play in World Series cricket. And I think he had about 3 or 4 of them that had been signed, and he paid them off and sent them home.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow, that's character.
So what happened next then? Because so now that we get that foundation with the Kerry Packer, what happened right thereafter?
Well, we had a contract for 3 years, as I said. We only played 2 years because Kerry Packer and the Australian Cricket Board came to an agreement where they would sell him the rights for Australian cricket. So they came to an agreement. Packer said, okay, I'll disband my World Series cricket, and things went back to normal.
Okay.
Now, this is now 79-80. This is now going to be the first series in Australia after Kerry Packer has disbanded his World Series cricket. It just so happens that the West Indies were going to tour Australia. So I was back in the West Indies team, the traditional West Indies team, that is. back going to Australia 79, 80. And so all of us who were playing in World Series cricket, our normalcy returned in that we were back in the traditional West Indies team. A couple of the guys retired. For instance, Roy Fredericks, who played World Series cricket, who was playing for the West Indies before, he retired when Kerry Packer disbanded World Series cricket. Who was retired? A couple of others retired. So, you know, we went back into the traditional cricket and things resumed.
Excellent. So having, because you know, you played for West Indies in that time, you know, that's the great era when a lot of things turned for the better of the team in terms of winning a few World Cups and also dominating international in terms of Test cricket. What was that like within that group that you know, Clive Lloyd, Dave Richards, and the greats? What was it like then?
Well, I didn't call a couple of names there. It is obvious that if anyone who was to look at that, the names on that team or in that squad at that time would recognize that we had some fantastic cricketers. We had a lot of great talent. So we produced a great team. But it doesn't flow one to the other because you have talent, you produce a great team. There were two factors that meant a lot to that squad. One, of course, was Clive Lloyd, the leader. People used to say, oh, he had so much talent, it didn't matter. He just picked whoever he wanted to pick and change the bowlers whenever he felt like, and they would win. No, there have been many, many teams that have had great talented cricketers or great talented sportsmen that did not produce the results that our team produced. So that was one thing that Lloyd did because he had such a good rapport with the guys. Perhaps the mere fact that he was a bit older than us helped in that he was more a father figure. But that was one thing. The other thing, in my opinion, was we got a gentleman by the name of Dennis Waite during World Series cricket, who was assigned to the West Indies team as our physio, who became physio and trainer with the West Indies team in World Series cricket, and he followed us back into traditional cricket. I think Lloyd went to the West Indies cricket board and said, we need him to come with us back in.
And before you continue, Mike, Dennis Wade is Australian.
Australian, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, a gentleman. He played rugby league in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And he is the person who was assigned to the West Indies World Series cricket team.
Mm-hmm.
He is the one who got us fit. He went to Clive Lloyd during World Series cricket and said, Skipper, you know, for a bunch of professional cricketers or professional sportsmen, you all are not anywhere near as fit as you should be. And Lloyd, they gave him free rein. Do what you think you have to do. And he got us fit. And of course, he then followed us back into the traditional West Indies cricket. And he stayed with us throughout that period. And if you look at that team, there were many occasions where cricketers missed games because we were extremely fit. If you're a fast bowler, you're going to have a niggle here or there. You might miss a game here or there, especially me being not the biggest and strongest of them all. But he kept us extremely fit. And that is the second factor that I think made us the world beaters that we were.
And as a fan myself of the game, Michael, you know, everybody speaks about the talent and the leadership, but it's the first time hearing about the actual physical preparation of the team because nobody really speaks about the standard of fitness. It was all about how great a batsmen they were, how great a bowlers, persons like yourself were, and Clive Lloyd's leadership. So that's really good to hear that within the background, there was that aspect of it because, you know, to see the team at a certain standard, because I'm sure based on what is evident that, you know, that worked hand in hand with fitness and also the approach to the game.
Well, the thing is, Marlon, people don't know what's happening behind the scenes. People only see what's happening on the cricket field. And if they figure, oh, these guys just turn up. They're so good, they'll just beat anybody. All they have to do is turn up. A lot of hard work went on behind the scenes. Physical fitness, training. I even had guys in England. You know, we become friends with cricketers in England, whether it's through county cricket or playing against them. And you have good relationships with them. You go for dinner and you have chats and that sort of thing. And you'll have them jokingly say, oh, you guys perhaps didn't even have a team meeting. No, we had at least two team meetings every test match. Those days we had rest days. So we'd have a team meeting the night before the test match started. And we'd have a team meeting the night of the rest day before we went back for the other 2 days, or sometimes we only went back for 1 day. We didn't go into the 5th day too often.
Yeah.
But we had at least 2 team meetings where we discussed the opposition and we discussed the state of the game on the rest day and what we needed to do to go forward. So although people say, oh, they were so talented, there was a lot of hard work going on behind the scenes. You know, I was listening and watching a discussion on the internet the other day where this gentleman was talking about the oak tree and seeing this tall oak tree, and people only see the oak tree, everything that's above ground. And he said, you know, if you were to look at infrastructure underground for that oak tree, you would be amazed. Nothing can stand that tall unless it has a great infrastructure underneath the root system. Otherwise, it will just topple over the first breeze. And that is what people see. They see the tall oak tree. They don't see the infrastructure underneath that's keeping that oak tree. And that's the same thing with sports. A lot of people see what the sports person does on the court, on the field, in the arena, whatever, but they don't see the hard work that goes on to get them there. And that West Indies team was similar. We worked hard.
Excellent. So just to go back a few years now, Michael, that you know, we always ask our guests, in particular old boys, was there anyone outside of your parents and that family support that you got in school? Was there anyone that left a lasting impression on you whilst you were at KC? Could have been an old boy, you know, a student, parent, coach. Was there anybody else, or a group of persons?
Don't ask me to name anyone. There were so many. I'll have to immediately start with Douglas Fortis.
Yeah.
No, I went to no other high school, so I can't compare and say I am absolutely sure anything about Douglas Fortis. But in my eyes, Douglas Fortis was a perfect headmaster. Douglas Fortis was very strict, but at the same time, he showed compassion.
Yeah.
Douglas Fortis would get upset and tell a student, get out of here, don't come back. And the next day, he would go to the students' home and say, why aren't you at school? Because he was so upset at the time, but he recognizes that you can't just treat young people like that. You have got to give them second chances and sometimes even third chances. You can't throw people under the bus like that. That was Douglas Fortis. Extremely strict, and people were afraid when he was walking around, but he was a gentle giant. He loved all of his students. I think Dogs, as we used to call him, probably knew the first name of every student in the school. But he was el numero uno as far as my time at KC is concerned. Then, of course, you have the sports master, Trevor Parchment, who insisted that I try and play cricket for the school. You know, it's always good to have playing for your club, but the school environment and representing a school, that is huge. And when I started playing at KC, that gave me a lift again to, you know, be involved in that community, be involved with the school. Then, of course, we had the individual coach that came along in my latter years at KC, Mr. Jimmy Richards. He was a cricket coach. Yeah. And Jimmy Richards again brought that family spirit. That, you know, we have some old boys. We can't call it an association, but we have a group of old boys who were influenced by Jimmy Richards. And they came together and put a scholarship in his name. Yes. You know, I'm a part of that group again. And just to show you the impact that Jimmy Richards has on so many youngsters at school. And they weren't all cricketers. Big in the cricket. Cricket was is big in that group, but they weren't only cricketers. Yes. But Jimmy Richards, again, he has departed, he has left us, but he left a great impression on me, and he influenced a lot of good things with people at KC.
Yeah, nice. So,
and of course, then you have your schoolmates. You know, I have some friends at KC from the first day I went to KC until now. A fellow called Dennis Cunningham was his original name. He changed his name to Mabrak Nkrumah, again, Pan-Africanist. Mabrak Nkrumah is his name now. He lives in Trinidad. From the first day at school, we went to school together. Derek Foster, another guy who went to school together first. We're still friends. I met other guys along the way. Alvin Elliott, who call him Yo-Yo. Bosom buddies. You know, Yo-Yo and myself will do anything for each other.
Yeah.
No, I have made some great friends passing through KC.
Nice. So I have a question to ask as we do these podcasts and understand a lot of things. Because I'm really now acclimated with the KC old boys and getting to know the history. And I get to understand that a lot of the classes like the Gibson, the Fortis, those names were actually class names that were taken from great people who have gone to the school, our faculty, etc. Is holding one that we can connect to say is to your family or your parents who taught there? Or
Yeah,
your
family.
dad?
Family.
Because, you know,
As I
we're
said,
connecting all of this to 100 so we can handpick and say, all right, 8 Holding is actually coming from the Holding family.
yeah, it's coming from the Holding family.
Good.
Yeah,
good,
my
good.
my
I learned
parents,
that
the
recently.
entire family. You know,
Yes.
people
yes.
will see Holding and think, oh, it must be Mikey because you know Mikey when KC or whatever, they go down to Melbourne, they see the Holding pavilion. But when
Yes.
they look at the pavilion at Melbourne, they'll see that the apostrophe is not inside of the S, it's outside of the S. So it's the Holdings.
Nice,
Not
nice.
just me who played cricket at Melbourne and became famous for playing cricket at Melbourne. And same Holding at KC is the Holding family.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
So,
And that the papers that are going down in the school, I haven't been down there recently, but I've seen pictures of what's going on. If you look, you see a pretty big paper there saying the Holding family.
yeah.
Nice.
I put that paper down and I put it to the family because we're all associated with
The
the
Wall
Springs.
of Fame, the
bricks,
KC
yeah.
Wall of Fame bricks. Yeah,
Bricks.
the bricks. Yeah, we plan on getting one hopefully in the near future. And again, that's something that KC old boys can take advantage of. You put your name, you put your time, and a little message if you want.
And you can put down bricks of people that you would love a brick to go down for as well. It doesn't have to be only for you. Because when looking at a video that I saw, somebody sent me a video of walking around. I saw a brick there for a friend of mine and a friend, very close friend of Alvin Elliott, who died, Charles Lodenqui. Somebody put that brick down because they wanted to remember
him.
Charles Lodenqui. So if you have a friend that you want to be remembered, you can put a brick down in that person's name.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. And all proceeds 100% go to our KINGSTON College.
Yes, everything.
That is good.
Of course,
So,
apart from the cost of the brick. The
Yes.
manufacture of the brick has to be paid.
Yes.
So there are two important things we want to highlight with regards to you, Michael. You made that transition from professional cricket to a commentator of the game. What was that like? And how did you make that step as well?
Well, I went into radio first of all. 1988. I retired from West Indies cricket, Test cricket in 1987. And 1988, Pakistan were touring the Caribbean. And I have a very good friend in Jamaica. You probably know of him, Ed Barnes.
Yeah.
Into radio for donkey's years. At the time, he was head of sports at RGR. And Ed and myself used to go to Cayman Spa because we were two big horsemen, big racehorse fans. We used to go to Sabina Park, not Sabina, Cayman Spa on a regular basis and meet up down there and talk and that sort of thing. And Ed came to me after I retired and said to me, Mikey, this is now heading towards the 88 Pakistan tour. This was probably late 87. I said, Mikey, Pakistan coming to the Caribbean the 88, you know, how about coming and doing some commentary for us? And I looked at Ed and said, Ed, you joking or what? Because them days I didn't speak to people. You know, if I know you, I'd speak to you. If I didn't know you, I was a little bit withdrawn.
Yeah.
I said, Ed, you joking or what? You think I would want to go on the radio? He said, Mikey, just think about it, man. I said, well, I do have to think about it, boss. You don't have me.
Yeah.
Months passed. We are now into 88. We are approaching now Pakistan's tour of the Caribbean. They're coming to Jamaica. And Ed comes back to me again. I said, Ed, I told you before, boss, I'm not interested. He said, Mikey, I'm not asking you to do the ball by ball commentary. We have people to do that already. We have the great Tony Koja. We have Rez Pereira. All I want to do is do color commentary. You know, at the end of the over, just talk a little bit about what you saw happening in the over, that sort of thing. And I thought about it, I said, wait, that's not so hard. Because if you have Tony Koja and Rez Pereira taking control of that, all you have to do is just, oh, on the third ball, this person did. I said, well, that's not so hard.
Yeah.
So I took up the opportunity, and that's where I started. Ed Barnes is the man who got me into commentary first of all. And of course, we know it just grew and grew. Went from radio into television, and then I went internationally working with international organizations. Eventually got a fantastic contract at Sky and retired in September 2021. But let me tell you a little bit about the television aspect of it as well, because Pat Russo was the president of the West Indies Cricket Board when we were getting our first broadcast of Caribbean cricket outside of the Caribbean. TWI was the company who came to the Caribbean to do cricket. It was an England tour, it was a matter of fact. And Pat Russo, who was in charge of the board, told them, okay, we'll give you the contract to come and do West Indies cricket, fine. But you have to have at least 2 Caribbean voices on your broadcast. You're not just going to bring everybody from overseas and do our cricket. And obviously the first one was going to be Tony Kozia. He was a dying of West Indies cricket. Nobody will ever step into his shoes. Well, not while I'm alive anyway. He was the first one, and he said to TWI, I have somebody I can recommend as a second. And they asked him who, and if Tony Kozia recommended me. So I got to be the second person that got involved in TWI broadcasting of cricket outside of the Caribbean. And of course, other people came along down the line, more and more West Indians and more voices got involved. But the first 2 were Tony and myself. And again, that grew and grew. Reg Pereira and myself became very good friends. Reg took me down to Trinidad to do radio with him down there. And it just kept on growing.
That's good to hear. Another point, Michael, is that, because I've followed you and I've listened to you as well when you do cricket, I know something that is very near and dear to your heart, and I've heard it coming out of some of the things that you've said already. And it is your approach to racism as the sport. And I know that is near and dear.
Marlon, not just in the sport.
In life.
In life.
In life, yes. Mike. Let your fans and the persons viewing the podcast, what is it that how you approach things in regard to racism?
Well, when I was a young man growing up in Jamaica, I never experienced any racism, because when the KC, going home, as I said, I live a pretty sheltered life, played a lot of sports, yes, represented KC in cricket and football and went to champs, that sort of thing. But apart from that, I wasn't in the society per se. So if there was any racism around, as far as working and getting a job is concerned, I didn't experience that because I wasn't in that aspect of life in Jamaica. My first experience of racism was when I left Jamaica in 1975 to go to Australia. So I'm in this now white society, and I'm experiencing this thing, not from all Australians, of course, but the odd person and the odd comment you'd hear and somebody would say something. But I did not allow it to affect me. And I just said to myself, if these people have a problem, that's their problem. Well, I don't have their problem. Yeah. I see people as people. And I am only here for a short period of time. I'm here for 3.5 months. I'm going back to Jamaica and leaving this behind me. So I didn't worry about it. Somebody said something, I didn't even utter a response because I knew I was going home. Similar situation when I went to England in 1976, and I came across it again, and I said, again, this is not my problem. As I've said and I've written in my last book that I wrote, I shouldn't say last book, I did another one that's not out yet. My second to last book, I was very selfish. I looked upon it as not affecting me, and so I brushed it off. I'm going back to Jamaica. I didn't really start to take it on seriously until I went back to England in 1980. And then now, being my second tour of England, meeting people, getting involved in the society a lot more, going out onto the streets, going to West Indians' homes, and hearing from them exactly what they experience. And it kept on growing on me as to exactly what these people were going through. And I thought to myself, but how can this be fair? Why should this be happening? But at the same time, I still never said anything. I did not really have the platform to say anything. I got a platform from Sky.
Yes.
When I was working on television, I would make the odd comment when somebody would say something out of order. But I never really expounded on it. But I got the opportunity from Sky. My boss at Sky, Brian Henderson, is the one who gave me that opportunity. Gave Ebony Rainford Brent and myself, as a matter of fact, the opportunity to talk about our experiences and to expose what was going on. It was just during COVID, of course.
Yeah.
What happened is Ebony Rainford Brent joined Sky Broadcast in 2020. She's going to be the first Black woman to join the Sky broadcasting team, cricket broadcasting team. COVID is going on. George Floyd, demonstrations, all that is taking place. And Ebony went on one of the demonstrations in London with her mask, of course, because, you know, you're not supposed to walking around. But she risked getting COVID because she said she wanted to go and demonstrate because of her experiences and all that and what she knows is going on. Brian Henderson had a Zoom meeting with his staff or everybody at Sky. I wasn't there. I was here in Cayman because we didn't even know that there was going to be any cricket that year. And in that Zoom meeting, Brian Henderson asked Ebony to talk about her experiences and why she went on the march and that sort of a thing. And Ebony broke down and cried in that meeting. And Hendo, it impacted upon him. He said to himself, this is a member of my staff. If she's affected this deeply by her experiences and what is taking place, we have to do something about this. So he called me here in Cayman and he said to me, Mikey, we're not sure there's going to be any cricket, but if you do come to England, if there's cricket and you do come to England, would you be willing to sit down with us and talk about your experiences as a Black man and the racism you have faced and what you think about the entire racist situation? I said, Hendo, absolutely. I've been dying for an opportunity like this. I don't want to just go on somebody's television broadcasting cricket and bring up a subject like that. But he's now giving me the license. And I said, absolutely. Now, if you remember, it was West Indies tour in England that year. The series did not start until July, I think, because again, they weren't sure that there would be cricket. When they decided, yes, they're going to have cricket, but no audience, nobody is going to be allowed into the ground and under strict conditions and that sort of thing again, Hendo called me, said, Mikey, we're starting the test series, and he gave me the date, whatever date it was. But because remember, this is 2020. I am 66 years old. People above 60, they were thinking we're under more threat with COVID than people below 60. He said to me, Mikey, at your age, we don't want to put you under any threat because remember, no vaccine at that time, not yet. He said, if you do not want to come to England under these conditions, you don't have to come. We'll pay you nonetheless. Don't come if you think it's a threat to your life. I said, Hendo, I am coming. We want to do this racism thing. I am coming. So I flew to England, did my quarantine. After the quarantine period was up, it was good that they allowed to quarantine at home. After my quarantine period was up, Hendo sent television crew and an interviewer to talk to me about it. And we did this interview. Did the same thing with Ebony Rainford Brent. And of course, we know what took place the day of the game. In that the interviews were supposed to come out at lunchtime. It was supposed to be a packaged program coming out at lunchtime, recorded interviews at the package, and we just throw it at lunch. But the weather was bad. It was drizzling and all that, and we weren't absolutely sure we would start on time. So Hendo put Ebony in the broadcast booth in the commentary box and sent me to what we call the wet area. When it rains, you broadcast from this area outside the ground, but covered. He said, if it continues to rain and we don't start on time, we're going to go into this thing. And thank God it continued to rain. Because when they did the introduction to the display and all that sort of thing, and we knew we were not starting on time, I was with Nasser Hussain and Ian Ward. Wardy was leading it because Ward is the presenter. And Wardy turned to me at the beginning of the conversation and said, when they showed the interview, that is, after they showed the recorded interview, and said to me, Mikey, what was it like looking down the lens of a camera and talking about this thing? And that just opened the floodgates. And it's afterwards Michael Atherton told me, I was unaware of it. that I had spoken for almost 4 minutes non-stop on the subject. And in television, 4 minutes just talking like that is a long time.
Yes.
And I could have continued for much longer if I hadn't started to get a little bit emotional about it. And Wardy saw that I was getting a little bit emotional and turned to NASA, was saying, and brought him in immediately and turned to NASA and asked him a question so that I could just kind of calm down a little bit. And that is where it all started. And, you know, a lot of people saw it. I understand in no time at all, it had over 7 million views or over 5 million views or something like that. And that is what led to the second to last book that I've written, the one, Why We Kneel, How We Rise.
And Mikey, I appreciate you sharing all of that, because it sheds a certain light on what's happening, not only in sport but also in life. On this last note now, before we start to wrap up, because you start to mention some things, and I have pleaded my ignorance. I didn't know you were an author. Yes, so could you just share with us quickly the books that you have written and what they're all about, and then what do we expect with that next book that you say is on its way?
Find them.
Well, the last book I did is, in my opinion, the most important book. The previous books were collaborations and, you know, about my cricket career and that sort of thing.
Okay.
This last book, again, yes, it's a collaboration as well, but this last book was ghostwritten by a gentleman by the name of Ed Hawkins, who was absolutely brilliant. I would just send them things to research. People knew I was doing this book, people all over the world, because, you know, I got so much fantastic response to what I said on Sky that I got a lot of people on board for me to help me with this book that I was going to do. That's why I was able to get all these great sports people involved in the book. Thierry Henry called me after he saw me on Sky. Mike, we need to talk. Michael Johnson is involved in the book. Usain Bolt involved in the book. What's her name? Naomi Osaka is involved in the book.
Yeah.
I have so many great names that people would know all around the world. Makaya Intini. So I have a lot of people that were interested in this topic and willing to help me with getting this book out. And I would send stuff to Ed. People send me clips, I'd send it to Ed, and Ed would research it, because you can't put something in a book like that unless you're absolutely sure that it is factual and that no little thread is exposed for people who don't want that book to circulate to start pulling it apart. And that book came out in about June 2021, I think. And no one has been able to look at that book, read anything in that book and say, oh, that's speculation or that's just an opinion. It's all factual, based on stories that can be proven. That book has done very well in a lot of parts of the world, except in the United States of America. I have not been able to get that book into the United States of America because we know what that country is like.
Okay.
It has been translated into Italian. It's available in Italy. And of course, a lot of the Commonwealth countries around the world. Even in South Africa, people have shown interest in that book. And when I say people have shown interest, I'm not just talking about Black South Africans. White South Africans. One of the first messages I got on my phone after I came off Sky was from an Afrikaner gentleman in South Africa that I know very well. I cannot call him a friend, but it would be presumptuous of me to call him a friend. But we have a good relationship. You know, I used to talk to him every now and again when I was in South Africa. And he sent a message to me on my phone. He said, Mikey, I heard what you said. I'm glad you said what you said because it needed to be said. So when people think of an Afrikaner and people spread all these stories about all these Afrikaners are so racist, none of them like Black people. No, we cannot pigeonhole people. I have another Afrikaner gentleman that I am in touch with on a regular basis about what's happening in the world as far as race relations and different things around the world is concerned. And another Afrikaner gentleman who is totally on my side. So let us not pigeonhole people. We as Black people have been pigeonholed We walk down the street in a white country, and women start to hedge away from the sidewalk and cross the street. We have been pigeonholed just because we're black. But we should not pigeonhole people because they're an Afrikaner, or they are a Muslim, or they are a Christian. We don't need to do that. We must step above that. Anyway, that book is out. It has been done very well. But the publishers came back to me again and said, we need to do another book on the subject, but this time we're going to target kids. We need to catch them early.
One second there, Mikey. 1 second, because you've spoken a lot about the book, but we don't hear what's the title of it.
I mentioned the title, but it might have slipped past you because you're not aware. It's Why We Kneel, How We Rise. I mentioned that.
Why We Kneel, How. Okay.
That's the name of the book. Why We Kneel, How We Rise.
Yeah, okay.
And we're doing this other book now. As I said, the publishers came back and said we need to target the youngsters because you're not going to bend many old trees. You can bend many saplings before you can bend some old trees. So we need to target youngsters. And this book now is dedicated or targeting 9 to 12-year-olds. And that Ed Hawkins and myself again. To be honest, Ed has done much more work on this book than me. The first book, both of us, we hit our heads together. We did a lot of research, a lot of work. This book is a little bit easier because we're using a lot from the old book, but we're making a little milder because that's Why We Kneel, How We Rise. I have a friend in England who wanted to buy it for his son. I said, don't buy it for your son. This book is a little bit too harsh.
Yeah.
So we're tempering this one down. We're targeting the youngsters, as I said. It's on its second edit now. The publishers have it. It's on its second edit. Hopefully by the end of the year or early next year, it will be available.
Nice. So on that positive note, Mikey, we always ask our guests, before we wrap up, to do a couple of things. And the first thing is to wish KC happy 100. And then the next is just to leave a positive message. We're not going to ask you for 4 minutes for the message, Mikey. So
my message will be very short, Marlon.
Well, leave a positive message for the current student body, administrators, everybody. But just wish KC happy 100 first, and then we'll get into the positive message.
Yeah, man. Well, I want to congratulate Kingston College first of all. Bishop Gibson had a fantastic idea when he started Kingston College. I have some friends from St. George's, and when I talk about KC and Fortis, and they keep on saying, oh, Bishop Gibson went to St. George's. And my comeback to them was yes. And that is why he formed KC, because after going to St. George's, he said to himself, there must be something better. So he started KC. So I want to congratulate KC, everybody that has been associated with Kingston College over the 100 years. All the students that have gone to KC, you must recognize the institution that you have been to and are going to. It's a great institution, and cherish the years that you spend there. As for any positive message, that's also a part of the positive message. It's a great institution. Cherish it. Let's hope that when you go through those gates, that you enjoy every moment that you are there. Take advantage of being at a school like that. Recognize the institution you're going to, what it can do for you, the friends you can make, how it can help you to get onto that ladder of life, and do not forget the school after you have left.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
After all these episodes, I keep telling individuals that I'll have a permanent smile because the stories are sweeter and sweeter and they're more unique. So when you hear them, you can't do nothing but smile through the entire journey. But you said something that is very amazing when we talk about Kingston College. And when you talk about the thing that it has done for your life, even after leaving school, it continues to resonate after each and every old boy that actually comes on here. And this is why we're doing this, so the young ones can understand that KC becomes a part of your life, indeed, whether you like it or not, whether you're in school or outside of school. But ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it from the great legendary cricketer, the man, I must say, who built the pavilion that I spent many nights sleeping at when we're doing camping, playing Manning Cup right there. So thank you for your time. The entire Headleys family, I know you represent them, your mom, your dad, your brother, your sisters, for all they have done throughout the entire years at Kingston College. We thank you. And we want to say, appreciate your time, because we know you're a pretty busy man. So to take your time out to bless us here on this podcast, we thank you. But we do not leave the podcast, Sir Michael, without going over the greatest motto out of the greatest institution. We ring that at the end every time. But before we go into that, I also learned something from Winston Stewart, who you probably know. And we always say Fortis forever. And he says, Pete, it's not that. It is Fortis then, Fortis now, and Fortis forever. So we lead into the greatest motto. Here it goes, sir, and join us, please. Fortis, Cadere,
CEDRE,
non
Potest.
The brave may fall,
but never yield.
What good? We'll see you again on the next 1925 and Beyond podcast with the greatest Michael Holding from Kingston College, West Indies and Jamaica. And I must say, a philanthropist and advocate in the community. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you, and we'll see you on the next episode.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on.